What's up, everybody? It's night number 3 of Deathmatch Down Under, takeover of Shooting the Shit Uncensored, baby. I am your host. I am the bald, the beard, the beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, I'm joined by another special guest from Deathmatch Down Under, Mr. Edward Dusk. And I'm really excited to bring him out and have a great conversation with him. Talk about his character, his career, what he's got coming up, his future plans in the business. But guys, before I bring out Mr. Edward Dusk, I just want to take a quick second, a quick pause for the cause, a quick moment to thank some of those fine-ass sponsors that keep these lights up in this bitch, especially these strobe lights, because they're expensive to run, trust me. I'm just kidding, guys. It's A-Rock Designs. A-Rock Designs is that company that you always hear me raving about, ladies and gentlemen. They make custom cups, tumblers, hoodies, keychains, you name it, they make it. They can even monogram your fucking dog. They don't recommend it, but they can do it apparently. But make sure you check out A-Rock Designs, based out of Georgia in the United States. They make an amazing product for an amazing price, and they ship worldwide, baby. Next up is Signal Studios. So Signal Studios is that recording studio based in Sydney, Australia. If you're an independent professional wrestler and you want to get your hands on some new intro music, something cool, something hip, something woke, something dope that you can walk and rock out to the ring in, then you can hit up Signal Studios. They work with amazing artists, much like the Cicadas band, who supply music to this show and every other show on the MWA Podcast Network. So make sure you check out Signal Studios. You can also find them in West Ryde in Sydney. They have the most comfortable, relaxing, beautiful rehearsal space. So if you're a musician, you need a place to get those creative juices flowing, hit up Signal Studios today. But guys, also, I just want to take a quick second to pay some respects to some of the amazing shows that we've got on the MWA Podcast Network. We've got Shooting the Shit Uncensored, of course, what you're all watching now. But we've also got Killing the Business with former ECW star, the Kingpin Angel. We've also got Get Funked as well, which is hosted by Alan Kwee Funk, former WCW and TNA star. And we also have Knights of the Gimmick Table by the Dead Presidents, tag team stars that have been around for the last 20 years and doing their thing. And now they're on the MWA Podcast Network with their show Knights of the Gimmick Table. They're bringing on guests all the time, guys, talking about the back in the day training at Gleason's gym, the famous Gleason's, where a lot of famous stars were trained in the business. So make sure you check out all those amazing shows. I can see a few people turning into tonight. Thank you very much. But I'm going to bring out my guest, Mr. Edward Dusk. Edward, thank you so much for coming on.
Mr. Piers, good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you on tonight, sir.
How are we?
I'm good, man. How's everything been going with you?
Good, very exciting now that everything's getting a bit back to some kind of normal in the wrestling world. We're running shows, get to be in front of crowds again, which we're very lucky to do, and have so much coming up. And really feels like Australia's kind of back in that boom that they were before the world kind of got shut down. We didn't really miss a step.
And that's the thing. Like, Australia's pretty much like one of the only countries that has live events where they're at full capacity.
It is, and it's really, I guess it, in a way, I've seen a lot of people say it. I think it's very true that I think it's definitely now putting eyes on the Australian product a lot easier in a way, because you can watch empty arena shows, but it's definitely a lot better when you've got a crowd there, and we're fortunate enough to have crowds. So I feel like by an extension of that, our shows have like a real energy that no one else does right now. And it's really giving us a bit of an advantage, I think, especially now with like PCW and PWA being on Fight and Deathmatch on, IWTV. We're all kind of running on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect time to be, in your prime and be an Australian professional wrestler, because there's so many eyes on the product right now. you know, and you're seeing people getting signed, you know, to contracts where, you know, 20 years ago, even like maybe as far as like, let's say 15 years ago, you weren't seeing many Australians getting signed. And now it's like, we're seeing it happen.
Oh, even sooner than that. I mean, I remember when I started training in 2016. I mean, Murphy, Emma at the time. I don't think Billy Kay and Peyton were signed then, but you know, you had one or two people signed to like WWE, and it made it feel like this much more reachable goal. And now I look and see like an Indy Hartwell who, you know, I've shared locker rooms with and is someone who was one of the first people I really bonded with when I got into the scene. And she's now in NXT or WWE, really. And it's even that in itself makes everything feel more like touchable than what it did 5 years ago.
And the thing is as well, it's not like Indy's just in NXT, right? She's in a good spot on NXT.
Absolutely.
Like, she's being, you know, highlighted on a 1 hour show, which I'm sure there's like at least hundreds of people that are just sort of clamoring for that spot under contract.
And it's not just her. I mean, you look at, I mean, all like her and Bronson as well. And I'm sure, you know, the Peyton and Billy, now that they've moved on, you know, will go and do huge things somewhere else. And you've got Murphy, who's, you know, a huge thing waiting to happen. You know, it's very much that. It's not just they're there. It's you've got someone like Indy who is a key cog in that whole machine at the moment. And yeah, to kind of look at that and think, you know, rewind it just a couple of years, and if you were told that, I'm sure she wouldn't believe you. It's crazy how much has changed just in our landscape of wrestling just in the past few years.
Let me get your perspective on something, okay? Because like you're a wrestler, and you know, obviously you've been a fan of the product. You know, you'd have to be a fan of the product to get into the business.
Yes.
And now, obviously, being a worker and being able to look at the product and break things down piece by piece, when you watch, say, an Indy Hartwell wrestle now compared to when she wrestled in Australia, do you see the differences? Like, you know, like obviously WWE train and mold people to perform the way that they want to, but have you seen a massive change in stylistically from her or even Bronson for that matter?
I'm not as familiar with Bronson's work, like far beyond like the years leading up to him getting signed and whatnot. I kind of only saw Jonah at the time, kind of just as he was really peaking in the hype before he got signed. But Indy, yeah, I've known Indy since 2016, so I think there was definitely a point where like she kind of had everything clicked together for her, and where, you know, you saw her and she was going around Australia, and I think she was holding like almost every women's championship that Australia has at one point. Like it just, at some point, everything clicked for her, and she couldn't be slowed down if you tried. And then, you know, next thing you know, it's almost the same thing. Like she kind of, she's gone to NXT, and, you know, she kind of had that popping up as an extra, for lack of a better term, in some matches and what have you. And now, you know, again, something's clicked, whether it be what she's doing now with Candice or what have you. But again, she can't be stopped. She's just off and running. So I think it is. I think you learn from different people, and then you put the pieces together. And for someone like Indy, obviously, she just puts the right thing in the right place, and you can't hold her down.
Oh, 100%. And you have to have that dedication to get to that level. But huge shout out to Nikki Van Blair. Hi, boys. Edward, tell everyone how much you love me.
I will tell her how much I love her when she decides to play Resident Evil. Until then, no.
Fair enough.
Inside thing. She'll know. It's okay.
Right. But, you know, as far as your career, you know, you mentioned you started training in 2016.
Yes.
What was it about, like, obviously, that got you into the business? Like, what drew you into wanting to be a wrestler?
I mean, I wanted to be a wrestler from, the minute I saw it, really. I'd seen it, like, I was like 4, maybe 5 at the absolute oldest when I got into wrestling. I'd seen it around. I can remember playing. I've got this weirdly vivid memory of watching some other kids play an old WCW video game. I don't know why, but I do. And then I was a bit of a strange kid, and a bit of I don't want to say a loner, but I was one of those kids, and still very much am. I'm content being on my own. I don't need other people. I can just do my own thing, and I'm happy. But my mother, bless her, was always trying to help me make friends, because, as a mother does, they worry. And so she would make friends and then invite the mother over and say, "Bring your kid. I have a kid."
Yeah.
And one day this happened, and this other boy rocked up and he goes, "I have a wrestling tape. Do you like wrestling?" And I was like, "Sure." And it was No Mercy 1999.
Oh.
And I saw Edge and Christian versus the Hardys in that ladder match, the Terry tournament, and saw Edge do a drop kick off like the apron to Jeff Hardy holding a ladder, and was like in awe that this was a real thing. These were real people kicking ladders into faces, and that was like it. I was obsessed. And this kid had like a box of videotapes that his dad had collected, like the old VHSs. None of them were the actual tape. They're all recorded. Like, so it's like actually Armageddon 1999. And so I'd go grab a bunch, watch them through the week, bring them back, grab some more, go back, and just watched. And I was obsessed as a kid on the trampoline, figurines, anything. It was like the one thing that I really latched onto for the longest period of time. And then I almost got to start wrestling when I was like 15. I went to my mother, again, started a new job and was working with someone and just making small talk, and mentioned, "Oh, my son, he loves wrestling." And this woman was like, "Oh, my boyfriend and I are wrestlers. You should come to one of our shows." And it was Danny Psycho and his girlfriend. And it was a PCW show. So we went, and Buddy Murphy was on it way back when as Matt Silver. And so started going to these shows, found out they had a school. And at the time, we lived about 3 hours away from where the school was. And I'm like 15. So I have no way to get there whatsoever. So that was kind of it, kind of accepted it. And then fast forward like 5 years, and randomly one day at a petrol station, look across the road, and there's a sign that says "Become a Wrestler," wrestling training now in Geelong. And went and sussed, because I thought I'll go and check it out. Like I'm well aware that this could be something, some kind of shady operation that's going to take my money and be the worst decision of my life. I thought, all right, I'll go and check it out. And I think what I was hoping was that it was shady, and then I could be like, well, that wasn't meant to be, and move on. And then I got there, and it was Danny who was running the school. So I knew him from these shows I'd gone to years before. Yeah. And I'm someone who's very much big on destiny and the universe putting you on a path, or whatever power you kind of put your faith in. And it all felt a bit too coincidental in a way. So I did the tryout again, thinking, right, I'll do the tryout, and when I fail, I'll be able to say, well, you know what, I gave it a shot. But I passed, I got in, and then everything kind of steamrolled from there, I suppose. I had a match in like 3 months, which I was not ready for.
But they obviously thought you were ready, right?
Yeah, we needed, the school in Geelong was new, and we needed people to know about it so people would come. So we had to put together a show that was going to be on one of PCW's slam shows, which were like for the academy, the PCW have, they run slam shows, and they're there so you can get the academy in front of a crowd and you can get those reps in. So we planned one, and it was myself and one of the other trainees versus another trainee and Danny. And compared to the other two were like athletic guys. They both played like football and stuff, and they looked like you'd want a wrestler to look. And at the time, I was still a little overweight. I still hadn't really come into who I am. I was just trying to fit in, trying to do good. And Danny, for whatever reason, he's always told me he just thought I looked like I wanted it and chose me to be in it. We did the match. It wasn't terrible. It was what a first match is probably going to be. And didn't end up going my way. I mean, I ended up being beaten by and pinned by Danny, which kind of snowballed into its own bit of a hatred that I have towards him for stealing my big moment. But having that and having someone have faith in you and in that moment was definitely something that I think helped me feel like maybe at that point that I was meant to do it. It stopped being this thing where I was like, eventually I'll fail and I can just hang my hat on that I tried.
Mm. But when you went to the trial, like, and it sounded like you going into that, you were wanting to fail. Like every step of the way, you were just like, I'll go there, it's shady. Oh, it's not too shady. I know someone here. Like, okay, he seems like a stand-up guy. I'll do the trial. I'll probably fail the trial. I pass the trial. Is it because you just doubted your ability, or was it because you thought it would be ultimately too hard?
No, it purely came down to the fact that at that point in time, I didn't really feel like I had a place. I feel like I was just I was like a couple of years out of school. Like I said, bit of an on your own kind of person, especially at that time. And having this like passion for wrestling, and any wrestling fan at some point has uttered the words, I want to be a wrestler. And I think it was me accepting that at that point in time, I'd never really achieved anything. And it was a lot easier for me to tell myself, like, when you fail, it'll be okay, because that's what this will lead to. And then you don't need to feel bad, because it's better, the old adage of it's better to try and fail than to, live life thinking, what if?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was trying to do at that point. I definitely at that point didn't expect it to turn into what it's turned into. But there was definitely around that time that the gear began to shift into, this is something that I'm good at, and this is an outlet that I need. And it turned from definitely that mindset, without me realizing the mindset was definitely me trying to fail, and turned into this mindset of, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and be the best at this. And that was kind of the beginning of everything changing.
And at the tryout and the trial what did they get you to do? Like,
I think I saw enough of them through the academy that they were meant to just be like rolls, learning to roll to protect yourself, and then learning basic bumps, a back bump, a front bump, and a flip bump. And it was meant to just be this basic kind of crash course to just show that you have like a general base of fitness, that you can do it, that you can master these like basic, safety techniques really, and the bare bones of bumping, and then everything would kind of go from there. But the trial that I had, it was only myself and another person. So the two of us kind of smashed through everything pretty quickly. So I don't think it's probably something we should have been doing, but we were eventually just learning suplexes and things. And I can remember taking a suplex and it hurting and being awful, but immediately getting up and wanting to do it again because I got to do a suplex and I thought it was the coolest thing. So it was just that. It was basic stuff, and then kind of snowballed from there because Danny Psycho is Danny Psycho and is a bit of a nut.
It's all in the name.
I knew what I was getting myself into.
But like, as far as like putting now, obviously now since from 2016 to 2021, and putting things together and like building your character to where you are now,
Hmm.
what did you envision your character to be when you started in 2016? Was it where you are now? Did you envision something else? How did it? What was your perfect gimmick for you when you first
Again,
started?
I was just still very much, even though, like I said, there was that moment where I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm good at this. I'm going to be really good at this, and kind of change everything around me. I still didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I wanted to be or what I wanted to be. So I remember for the first few months, I was definitely just some kind of bad try hard attempt at being Christian in like 2003 when he was, just full of himself and a pretentious. And I was just like, yeah, that'll be me. I'm like that. I'm cool. And I think it was almost covering up for an insecurity. Like I'm really this. So I'll pretend I'm this and then no one will know. But it was bad. It wasn't good. It wasn't me. It wasn't anything that I could really connect with. And I think with a character, there's the thing that you hear everyone say, which is it's you turned up to 11.
Yeah.
And then I think on the flip side of that, which is where I fit in, which is where it's not so much you turn to 11, but who or what you are, but on display in a way that you can't elsewhere. I can't be as violent and as malicious as I'd like to be in everyday life. It's not exactly how you get ahead. You kind of got to be nice and smile and be polite. But in wrestling, you can kind of let these little things out. And then slowly over time, I just had little ideas. And then bit by bit, I was like, well, I really like, I think I should have like an entrance jacket. So I got one made. I was kind of like, that's a better look than what I had previously. And then I kind of got more into different wrestling and kind of saw guys that would wear like cut-off shirts, like like Owens does, or things like that. And I thought, okay, so I don't need to try and look like an athlete with my singlet on because I'm still overweight at this point. I can wear something like that, and that's a bit more me. And then over time, just little things that kind of came in. I wanted to cut a promo. I had like my first big show match on a PCW event, and I wanted to do something for it. I wanted to cut a promo because when I started and I was unathletic and chubby and awkward, I couldn't do the wrestling side of it too well, but I could do the promos. I could talk. So I put all my money in that. I was like, well, if I can't have the best match, I'll make sure that I can out-talk anyone else then. And then as I lost weight, got fitter, and got better at the wrestling side of stuff, I already had the promos down. So it was just catching one up to the other. But I wanted to do this promo, and I wanted to do something for it, something that was different. And something I've always been really into is like tarot cards and fortunes and things of that nature, a bit more of the occult kind of things. And I thought, well, why don't I use these? Why don't I bring these into this? Because this is more of who I am than this Christian ripoff. So I did one promo where I used tarot cards in it. And I got my my partner to help me build like this set and use the tarot cards and used, rather than just talked wrestling promo, I got more into something that you might read in like a Lovecraft novel or something like that, and brought it in. And all of a sudden what I was looking at didn't feel like a rip-off of something else anymore. It felt like me. And it was something that I wanted that was now coming out. And so I kind of latched onto that, and it kind of grew and expanded and is now turned into what it has turned into. But it all really started with no notion of where I was going, no notion of what I wanted to do. It was just little steps of going, this isn't me, that has to go. But this is me. Maybe I'll bring that in. And then became like this Frankenstein of ideas that luckily turned into something that worked, because it could have just as easily fallen flat on its face.
And exactly, like it comes down to, when characters are able to be unique and you're able to do something that you don't see every day or you haven't seen before in wrestling. It's awesome to see, because everything, and I've said this 100 times, everything in wrestling has been recycled thousands of times through decades and generations. But where you're able to sort of bring out something more personal into your character of who you are, explaining that character and explaining that promo, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself more as a babyface, or do you see yourself more as a heel, or someone who's kind of in that between section and can skirt very closely to baby and heel?
I think some people may be endeared to me, but at the end of the day, I'm not a very good person. So I think in terms of alignment, I'm definitely not come on babyface. Yeah. I'm definitely down in the murks of being a very disgusting, irredeemable person. And I like it. I like being booed. I like being hated. I don't need the adulation or, the praise from people. I enjoy doing something and then watching everyone in the crowd being absolutely disgusted with what I've just done. I like that visceral response.
Mm-hmm. And to get that reaction these days is hard to do, to get that authentic heel reaction from an audience, because a lot of the times in wrestling you're seeing today with heels are doing shit that are getting pops from the crowd. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're a heel and the crowd's popping for your shit, you're not a heel, you're a babyface. But when someone can get true good heel heat, like even in today's society today's world or whatever it is, it's a testament to their work and their craft.
Absolutely. I think being that the cool heel has almost become a thing of itself. Like, it's almost this, it's the tweener, or, it's whatever label you want to put on it. But not just because it's, I've definitely, as I've grown and gotten more into wrestling and watched more wrestling, not only like broadened it from just watching mainstream companies to all the little indies, but also gone back and watched older wrestling, is that true heel there's something to it that, to me, like I said, there's nothing that beats that genuine reaction from a crowd that hate you for something you've just done. And it's something that I definitely found that when I was a heel, still am rather, but in the early days, and you would do something and their reaction would be just this visceral boo, that brought out some kind of satisfaction in it. Like, I've never wanted to be that heel that you leave cheering or that you think is cool.
Yeah.
Certainly, the look is not, between the coats and now a mask and things like that. And I do a lot to make sure that it's visually very appealing. But by the time the bell rings and the match is over, I want to make sure that you despise me. I don't want you to then come up to the merch table and tell me how good I am and how good of a worker I am. I don't want that at all. I want you to hate me. I want you to not want to go anywhere near me because you're worried you might hit me for what I've just done 10 minutes ago. That's what I want. I want that, like, good old, like, Ric Flair territory.
Real heat.
Yes.
Real heat. Yeah.
Randy Orton walking into the ECW show, just pure.
John Cena going into the ECW show as well. Right? That was, that to get. Do you think to get that heat in a show or any type of show, big or small, is a hard task to get?
I think depending on the type of crowd you might encounter, it can, because you can definitely have a crowd that are a bit more, I suppose, I find, for lack of a better term, perhaps like the more family crowd will play into the heels and the baby faces where they may have never seen you before, but if you come out being energetic and happy, they'll go, "That's our guy. We like him." Whereas if you come out and you're giving everyone a stink eye and grimacing and that, they go, "Okay, that we don't like him." They'll play into it. Whereas you can definitely then have another crowd who will just like who they like. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could go out there and kick a baby in the face, but if they think you're cool, they're going to cheer you. And those are the ones that I really enjoy, because it is taking that people who might turn and go, "Oh yeah, he's cool," and then trying to find some way to change that line of thinking where there's something in their brain, because it's what you do as a wrestler in telling that story and telling a narrative, that you somehow make something human in their brain switch, that they go, "No, I want this guy to lose. I want that other guy to win." And that's what I love, whether it be having a crowd that's a bit so-so, or that maybe even be a bit more positive towards me and trying to find something that has that switch where they don't know why, but because it's a human reaction, they now hate me because of what I've done. And I think that's where you can get into like the beauty of what wrestling can do to a group of people.
Oh, 100%. But I think as well, to get that level of heat at a consistent level of shows, but also have that as a character, like, you've got to be pretty much close to fucking drop kicking babies in the ring to get that sort of level of fucking heat.
If that's what it takes, Piers, then that's what it takes. I'm not above the baby.
There you go. I'll make sure my baby stays home. I won't take him to a show that you're on, man. But I think as well, like, for that aspect of wanting to be that, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe probably people in general like the feeling of being cheered and and egged on, and but I think as well, to be a real heel and to want to go out and get that sort of level of heat and that sort of like that real heel heat, do you find like people prefer to work a baby face or as opposed to heel?
I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. I feel that across the board, most people will tell you that being a heel is more fun, that you get to let loose a little. Like I said earlier, like everyone's got something in them that you can't let out, and then having that avenue of being a heel kind of lets you lash out a little and lash out against certain confinements of everyday life. Whereas the babyface doesn't really do that. You need to be an admirable hero. You need to be likable. Yeah. And for some that works. You look at like a Stone Cold, obviously, who's not a good guy, but people relate to him and get behind him. But then I'm sure that there are some people that just literally thrive off the energy of a crowd being behind them, and that's what pushes them. So I'd say it's, in my experience, probably a bit of a mixed bag. But if anything, I think I hear more people enjoy being a heel than playing the babyface. I certainly, being a babyface, it's fine. It's definitely fun and enjoyable when a crowd is behind you. But again, there's nothing like that legitimate heat from a crowd for me.
And I suppose being a heel, like, I think creatively it gives you more to work with. Like, I think to be a babyface, like, come out, jump up and down, smile, slap hands, that easy sort of stuff to get like a generic babyface reaction. But like to go out, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think most people could probably get like a babyface reaction if they wanted to. Whereas I think to be a heel and to get the sort of heat that you're talking about, it pushes people creatively, and I think especially pushing people creatively in like 2021, where people have sort of seen it all and seen some of the most shocking shit. So I think to get heat and to be creative, heels are probably more creative now than what they were 30 years ago.
Absolutely. I think wrestling in general has become more creative. I mean, you look back at, what things were like when, say, a Hulk Hogan was on top, and it was very much, you just introduce someone who's a bad guy, they face Hogan, Hogan wins, yay, the good guy. And then, you look at then the 90s, and like we said with Stone Cold, and it changes a bit. Now the hero isn't so much the guy who's playing by all the rules, but the hero is the guy that the crowd can relate to. And, it's, and you hear 1,000 times if you watch a documentary on him, is that Austin beat up his boss, and who doesn't want to beat up their boss at some point in their life? So it works. Yeah. Then you move to today, where anything can be anything. Like, you can look at someone like, Moxley, who's out there trying to murder people, and fans love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And in the same token, can have someone come out like a like the Revival or FTR and just say, we want to have good wrestling, and people go, we hate you. How dare you? So it's, things are just flip-flopped, and it is being creative enough to find your avenue, I think, and how you fit into whatever lane you want to be in. Like, for instance, for myself being a heel, I have to work out what I can do to navigate that, to be the heel, while not just being someone else or doing something that you've seen before. It is being creative. And I think as someone who considers themselves creative, it's something I thrive in, like trying to find an approach to whether it just be a match or a storyline or what have you, and finding how we're going to spin it and how I'm going to fit into it for me to get the reaction that we want, and not just go down a path where all of a sudden I'm now the one that you're getting behind. You've got to be creative enough now, and more so than ever, to really know that, well, now in that today's day and age, if you go and do XYZ, the crowd may get behind you now. So we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. And it is just coming back to that human nature of, with the right story, the right moment, and the right drama created, without realizing it, the crowd will go the way that you need them to go, because it's just that human response to whatever conflict or drama you've put in front of them. Look at like Ricky South taking the PWA championship of UG, right?
Yeah.
It built to this beautiful, heroic triumph moment for Ricky, because he beat UG, who became the most despised man just because he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Not for anything he did, just what he didn't do.
He wasn't able to come to Sydney due to lockdowns.
That's
that made him a heel. I love it.
But then you look at like UG, in MCW or Deathmatch, and everyone loves him because he's different. He's fun. And then you've got, you've got this like natural, again, this human thing of, you go, I don't know what it is, but I like this caveman. But then over in PWA, they despise him because how dare he be locked down in Melbourne? We hate you now. And hooray for Ricky taking you down. And it's purely just a human response. That's all it was. UG doesn't speak. He's literally done nothing to trigger this response, but it's there. It's just a natural response to a scenario. And then it leads to a moment because of the drama that was created.
But it comes down to like every good guy needing a bad guy to sort of be the foil. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's probably automatically where it's like, I think it probably could have been anybody in that spot, but besides UG. And I think they would have all gotten that same reaction. I think
it's absolutely creating that antagonist protagonist. Doesn't always have to be a heel, doesn't always have to be a villain, or the villain versus the hero, but there needs to be some kind of antagonistic force against our protagonist or the protagonist. It can be a villain, it can be someone like myself, it could just be a scenario. It could very well just be that they doubt themselves, and that's their antagonistic force. And the story becomes the babyface overcoming the doubt that they have within themselves. And the moment has nothing to do with who they beat or what they win. It's purely the fact that, they overcome their own self-doubt or something like that. You look at Progress and Will Ospreay. There was an entire story arc on the fact that he was scared to hit the 630 because he did it and landed on his head. So he got in a feud, and the only move that was going to win the match and the championship for him was the 630, but he was too afraid to do it. So it became this big story, and then finally in the big blow-off, he hits the 630 and he wins. He overcomes his own fear. It has nothing. There was tons of other stuff going on, but that in itself is its own moment and creates this huge pop because of the drama. He goes up to the top, the crowd knows the story, they know the drama, so they have a human reaction to the fact that he can't hit this. He's scared, and then he does it.
And they're invested.
That's it. That's all you have to do. You create drama, which means they're invested, and then you can create a moment because the crowd cares about what you're doing.
And as soon as you get that the crowd invested and the fact that the crowd cares, man,
you're unstoppable.
100%.
If the crowd genuinely care and are invested in what you're doing, you can make no wrong. You look at Murdoch and Aisha winning the tag championships. Aisha's okay. I despise Murdoch. I hate it. He's he touched my coat once. He wore it. He had the audacity to put it on. He's wretched. Anyway,
brother,
cared about them. It didn't matter, and JXT and Fox are, like we said, perfect antagonists. But the crowd wanted Aisha and Murdoch to win so badly. They didn't care how we got there, what happened. They just wanted that. So when it happens, you've got a moment because they're invested in those two. And when you've got good players like JXT and Fox and you have a good story like the tournament, it creates the moment. It makes it better. But if that investment will go a long way all on its own. You see it time and time again.
And I think that, sometimes when promotions don't make that decision to give that moment to the fans, and there's and you can almost see it when you watch it on live television. You just see this, this deflation from the crowd. And I think it's if you look at when I think Batista came back and won a Rumble instead of Daniel Bryan, every internet fucking wrestling fan had broken fingers from smashing their keyboard so hard. You know what I mean?
And then you see they do WrestleMania 30 and they fix it, but it's exactly that. They have a moment and it's they know what they want. They want Daniel Bryan. They're not sure it's going to happen, but they know what they want. And it's that weird thing in wrestling where if they got it, they don't know that they're going to get it. There's no one has put the Rumble together and gone, guys, Daniel Bryan's going to win. Okay, be excited. They're just there, not saying that. It's not even we know he's going to win. They're just there fingers crossed. I hope he wins. And then when he doesn't, they get really angry and turn around and go, well, he should have won. And it's that weird thing in wrestling. No one's going to watch a UFC fight and have it go the full fight, come down to a decision, and then go, that's not fair. He should have won. This is bad. Don't like it. They just go, oh, damn, and move on.
But that's the thing. I think as well that they have to understand. It's these fans that were complaining, they still watched the next night, bro. You know what I mean? They were all tuned in, and when he won the title, these were all the same. internet wrestling fans that were smashing keyboards. Like they're like sitting there and they end up getting the biggest moment of all of him winning the title, which ultimately, is bigger than winning the Royal Rumble. You'd
Absolutely.
imagine. Yeah.
And it's exactly that. It's that weird thing of, the people that, something will happen and they'll go, well, I hate this. I'm boycotting it. I will not watch anymore. But I'll watch the next show to see what they do. And they come back.
And in saying that, when you go out to the ring and you try and tell a story, you want to be the most hated man. But
Yes.
What other objective do you have when you go out to that ring?
In terms of the story?
In terms of what objective would it be as far as like how you want to tell a story, as far as what kind of match that you want to have, as far as like what journey do you want to take the audience on?
I think it is very much that hero-villain story. I think it was always going to come back to that. Like we said, doesn't have to be me that's the antagonist. We can use something else. I am a master of finding whatever it is that an opponent has that I can exploit. Whether it's an injury, whether it's something in their head, whether it's someone else, whatever it may be. It's the easiest way to create doubt in someone if you know what their weakness is. Everyone has weaknesses. It's just about finding it and using that. If you have, and I think that's where whatever the match is, and whatever the story is, you need to find whatever that weakness is going to be, because that's where you're going to, I'm harping on the same point, but create the drama. If it's as simple as looking at the old, you go up against a high flyer, so you ground them. Yeah. And it might seem basic, but at the same time, that crowd goes, oh shit, if he's on the ground, he can't do his move. What do we do now? And there you go. There's an entire story. And that's where I like wrestling to be. I like it being a story where when it's over, you can reflect on it and you can see what the story was, whether it's something as simple as, well, Dusk grounded him because he's a high flyer, or maybe there's a lot more you can pull from it. Maybe there is a lot more going on, but that's what I want. I want the story. I want the emotion. I'm not as concerned with being told that, my moves look cool and that I'm a good worker. I'm more concerned with how you feel, how you felt, what you feel during and what you felt afterwards. That's what I want. That's what I would rather see someone's reaction online being absolutely furious that I beat someone than someone saying, watch Dusk versus such and such, real good work. That doesn't interest me. I don't need to be told I'm a good wrestler. I want you to feel something visceral and then let that out. That's what I want.
Absolutely. And, Lowrider is saying ring psychology is a lost art. And Lowrider, who's been wrestling in the US since the early 2000s, him and his brother Boogaloo as the Dead Presidents. And man, like those guys, you see how they work. They definitely have like amazing ring psychology with the way that they perform in the ring, the way that they put things together in the stories they tell. Very similar to what you were saying.
I think as much as I don't think it's as lost as it was maybe, when people really got up. Like, because I can remember it was before I started, but I remember when I would get into when everyone started getting a podcast. Everyone just wanted to talk about how there's no ring psychology, how no one knows how to work a crowd anymore, and all those things.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's come back. I mean, there's plenty of examples I can think to point of. Like, you look at the stuff that, like, on a mainstream level, like, what Roman Reigns has done recently, I think is a great example of telling a story. What Hangman is doing in AEW, And then you can look at New Japan and how they can tell stories just with wrestling. Like, it might not be promos and things. They might use, like, the Okada and Omega story basically being, if Kenny can hit the one-winged angel, he'll beat Okada, but he can never hit it. Like, that in itself became this entire psychology of a 2-3 year long feud.
Yeah.
And then there's like Okada and Tanahashi's war, which is like my favorite thing in wrestling. But there's definitely these things of using it again. And I feel like it's not as lost as it used to be. I feel like it's evolving and finding different ways to do it, because, like we were saying, wrestling's not as black and white as it used to be. But it is something that I think, it's like what we're saying about having that investment, where the investment will go a long way, and then having like good wrestlers and a good story to bring it all out will only make it better. It's the same thing. Like, you can go out and, like, the talent in wrestling right now is probably as stacked as it's been that I can think of, maybe since like early 2000s. But you've just got talent everywhere. Like, you could go to, you have MCW this past weekend. You've got a PCW show. I'm talking here in Victoria this weekend. And then Deathmatch the week after that. And on all of those shows, you'll see matches that someone will probably go, that's my match of the year. That was amazing. Because everyone can have fantastic matches. And then it's people introducing the psychology that they bring to it, or the character that they bring to it. And it lifts it to a whole nother level, and makes it so much more than just a good match.
100%. And you mentioned the level of performers that we have here, and I think the competitiveness of it, and the level of performers that we have and what the stories that are being told in the ring from a local level is amazing. And I think that we touched on earlier, like, we're seeing a couple of Australian promotions turning up on Fight TV, turning up on independent wrestling TV, and those platforms alone, going out to independent wrestling fans, which are like the most hardcore fucking fans in the world as far as professional wrestling, because I am a fucking indie mark. Like, I sit there and I'll sit there and start watching a random indie show on IWTV or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, who's this person? All right, where have they worked before? And then I become invested. I want to sort of like learn more about the performer, and then see other matches of theirs and so forth like that. Most of the time, there's always like a couple that I'm like, yeah, I'll move past this one. But I think, but to have that sort of platform to sort of apply your trade and to be seen on it brings more eyes on the Australian product, but also more eyes on the performers here in Australia as well.
Absolutely. I think I really feel like, what I was going to say, my first thought was that I felt like we were really in this like bubble that was about to like burst. That's a negative phrase, but like, it was something that was Australia. We had Australia's independent scene, and it felt like just as it was getting to the point where everyone was pointing to say everyone should be watching this, that the world shut down. And it feels like we said from the top of the interview, that it feels like we've just picked up right where we left off. Like, the hype is there, and now with things like that, it's magnified it even more so. But I feel like, you could make the argument that it's already there. I mean, we talked about all the Australian talent that's, in WWE right now. You look at like Kellyanne, Slex, and Adam Brooks being signed to Ring of Honor, who, I hate to be the guy blowing smoke, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if once borders open that they're running the entire promotion, because they're all impeccable talents. The talent that we have here is ridiculous. It's insane how stacked it is, but I think it also adds another level to it. Like, definitely like a bit of a competition. Like, I'm very much someone who is never content. I'm never going to go, cool, this is fine. I'll always have my eye wander over there and go, but I could be where that guy's at, and that would be better. So what do I have to do to get from where I am to where they are and work my way up there? And then if I get myself there, there'll be someone else that's a bit higher up, and you keep going, you keep going. And having the talent that we have means there's always something or someone to strive for. And I think that's why the scene itself just keeps getting better, is because to then get your foot in the door, you need to be able to hang with this talent. And then the talent that's already in the door has to now level up to match what's coming in. And it just keeps going and going and going. And who knows where we're going to end up in, you know, another couple of years.
Where do you ideally want to go?
I mean, like I'm sure anyone, I would just love to turn this into my life, where wrestling's all I have to do. Wrestling is pretty much my life as it is. But to be able to say that that's what pays the bills and all those things, wherever that is, I'm not fussed. I don't have an exact goal. There's, you know, it's the old thing of you can sit there and say what you want, but if WWE contacted me tomorrow and said, "Do you want to sign?" I wouldn't say, "No, I'm good."
Exactly.
So it's a bit of a null point, like where I would just like that. That's where I'd like to go. Where that is, wherever I feel that, you know, it's one of those things where whoever wants me is where we'll go. I just want, the only striving I really have is the top. Like anyone else, I'm sure, who is serious about this, is you can't all be the best, but you should all be striving to be the best. And as close as I can get to that, I will take. But I'm going to push as hard as I can to get as high up on that mountain as I can.
Do you fear that if you ever did get signed to somewhere, and let's take WWE for example, like they come and knock on the door and say, we want to sign you, here's the contract, but would you fear that you, by the time that you get there, they go, right, Edward, so this is what we're going to change. We're going to change your name. We're going to cut your hair. We want you to put on, 15 kilos of muscle mass. And then we're going to put you in a tutu, and then you're going to come dancing down to the ring, and you're going to be the Australian ballerining tutu.
There's always that fear, obviously. I mean, you've seen it countless times, and, I'm sure it's a bit of everywhere. People get saddled with bad gimmicks, or, get redressed or booked wrong, whatever label you want to throw on it. And I think that's the one thing for me that, would be the biggest hurdle to ever overcome if someone did want to change things, is, again, as someone who's creative and someone who has cultivated all these things together and has created something, in depth and put a lot of work into it, to have someone to want to not so much change it, but take it away would be too much. I think collaboration in creativity is only good, because you should always listen to someone else's ideas, because you don't have the best idea in the world. And unless you have the best idea in the world, then there's no reason not to listen to someone else's. Hello, Aisha. So I think from that point of view, collaboration is fine. I've had it before. I've gotten the opportunity to collaborate over Isolation with Crackerjack on character and that creative side, and having that was amazing because of who he is and what he does, and the similarities that the two of us have.
And he's a great character.
Absolutely.
And someone who has been in the business for so long, who gets it on every single step of the level. Just by having a conversation, you pick up straight away that he gets this inside and out.
He has an incredible mind for it. But not just he's the most recent example, but Jay Andrews at the MCW Academy, Rowdy at PCW are all people that have been incredibly formative in collaborating with the things that I've come up with, because I can definitely get very lost in the weeds very quickly, because my brain comes up with something and it grows and it grows and it grows. So having people like those guys that I mentioned, who I very much see as like mentors and whatever label you want to put on it, I would say mentors, to come in and kind of cut the weeds out of it and say, you don't need all this. This is fine. This works. Or that doesn't work. What if you did this? So to get back to get off the tangent we've gone on, that collaboration, if I was to go somewhere and they said, well, hey, what if we do this, this, and that? That's fine. If it can be better, I want it to be better. But I wouldn't want to go somewhere or do something that is something else, because this is me. This is what I can sink my teeth into and be passionate about. And if you want me to do something else, chances are I won't bring the same passion and dedication to it, because it's not me, it's not mine. Who knows? But that's definitely how I would see it playing out, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely see when a performer is not into the gimmick or not into the character. And I think it just comes down to, obviously people having different visions of what they want. The promoter having a different vision of a character, and then the promoter and then the performer visioning it a different way, and their visions being completely askew. And that's why I think sometimes where you see, whether it be a failed gimmick or a failed character, it's not that it could be just 100% bad, but it could just be a majority of the times what I believe is different visions that are not aligning up together.
Yeah, and you see proof of it all the time. Like, you look at people that will go one place and do something and it doesn't work, or something's missing, and then they go somewhere else and all of a sudden it clicks. Moxley is the best example I can think of, as a guy who hasn't changed all that much, but is clearly just from Dean Ambrose to John Moxley, is something has changed there where now it's working, because now there's that passion, there's that dedication to what it is. But in the same token, you can look at like certain people who will go one place and not have it all there, but go somewhere else, and someone gives them the right piece that's missing, and they're off. It's just
EC3 prime example.
Yeah, a very good point. I feel like you definitely see people where you can see all the makings of something that works, and it's just not there yet. And then like Paul Heyman in ECW is a good example of hiding the weaknesses and whatnot, but giving people whatever it was that they needed to make it work. Well, Sabu won't talk; he'll just appear and do stuff, and then he'll disappear.
Beat the fuck out of people, yeah.
And all of a sudden, you go, "This is amazing." But then he turns up in WCW or WWE, and you're like, "It's not working. Why isn't it working?" And it could be something as simple as the fact that he has an entrance now, but it takes away something that worked before, but now doesn't. And I think it's those little things where, whether it's just bringing that piece of you, or someone being collaborative with you and bringing that thing that you haven't thought of, that can be the difference between something that works and something that doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Sabu, and I think he bought the same character doing the same thing, and there wasn't a great deal of differences. But I just think that the audience on that level just, I don't know, they just didn't connect well with him for some reason. But Sabu, huge star in the business in Japan, in parts of the US, but for some reason that WWE crowd, it's just, and WWE wasn't the place for him.
And you see, I watched a lot of wrestling during isolation, a lot, and rewatching kind of that like late 90s, early 2000s period where ECW and WCW kind of, fade away. But you see in ECW, like, I've not watched a lot of ECW, so I kind of made it like a point to watch a bit more. And you can see dudes who that crowd is rabid for. They, that is one of their top guys. And then obviously they have this success, so then WCW or WWE scoop them up and then present them the exact same, and the crowd don't care. And again, maybe that missing thing that we're talking about was literally just the ECW crowd. They just had the crowd that connected with this, whereas this is a different demographic, so they don't. And now it all falls apart, and they don't know what to do. So it's,
yeah, I think as well that, you know, making the changes, like you see WWE have always tweaked characters as well. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that comes down to, obviously, you know, you can't have someone going out on pay-per-view, you know, dropping F-bombs and shit like that. Whereas back where these guys were performing, they could sit there and you know, put a woman through a flaming table covered in thumbtacks, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just different places, bro.
well, like the Dudleys are always like that weird thing of at ECW. They are like what we were talking. They were despised. The crowd hates them. They go to WWE. They're heels for a little while, but then they change. They become faces, and they just beat people up and put them through tables. And now they're the biggest baby faces in the company. When a year ago they were, you know, almost getting in. Well, they were getting in fights, just trying to leave the venue. So again, that change of demographic doesn't really like take away from them. It just means there's something else now to these people. And like the Dudleys are a good case of it working in both places, just in a different way, which is to what you're saying, where you tweak something because you're like, oh, this isn't working, so we'll tweak this. Oh, look at that. That works. Let's do that. And that's what we've kind of said a few times, which is that's it. You've got to learn how to navigate your way through things where you just do the same thing. It's how things go bad. It's something someone said to me, and I've taken it very much as a point, which is as soon as you get stale or as soon as you get comfortable, that's it. It's over. Because the minute that you're comfortable and you're like, this is good, this is fine, is the moment that someone else comes past doing something different and leaves you behind because you've sat down. You're like, well, this is fine. I don't need to change anything.
Yeah. And I think, like, even when they, you know, you mentioned the Dudleys, when they would change from heel to babyface, it's amazing how small of adjustment they made to be a babyface. They still put people through tables. They still beat the fuck out of people. They just beat the fuck out of people that the crowd didn't like.
They just beat up heels instead of faces, and now they were faces. That was it. That's all they changed. Which is what you want. Like, if if the difference between, if I am trying to keep the crowd on my side and versus trying to have them hate me and want to fight me on my way out is just who I've decided to pick as a victim. As a heel, I'll pick one of their favorites. As a face, I'll pick someone they don't like, and then we can have a mutual enemy and be okay.
That's it. But man, I can't believe we've just gone past an hour. Like, I feel like I could sit here for another 2 hours, man, and just talk to you. I definitely want to get you back on for a part 2, but I just want to be respectful of your time. But man, look, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Guys, Edward, can you tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you, where they can buy some of your merch to set it on fire? It gives you such a despisable prick of a heel.
Yes. So Wrestle Merch is the best place to find all of my merch now. There's only one shirt there at the moment, but it's all going to slowly be built back up over time. And then on Instagram at dusk.eternal, and the same for the Twitter.
There you go.
I lie. Twitter is dusketernal_ because dusk.eternal was taken for some reason. That's right.
Damn it. So, also, what have you got coming up, man? So, Deathmatch Down Under is, you're going to be doing some matches on their cards as well. I was looking at the tournament bracket, but you're not in the tournament. So, where are you? Oh, you are in the tournament now.
Yes.
Okay, I must have been looking at an old one. Who are you facing in the first match?
Not paying much attention.
I have been Mr. Dusk. I have been, but I must have brought up the old image. I apologize.
No, I will be facing Royce Chambers in the first round on my way to becoming the champion, which I will do. I keep saying it, and I think everyone's taking it as just a bit of a brag. But again, fortunes, tarot cards, I'm promising you what's going to happen.
So you're going to, okay. So you think, all right, so Royce Chambers, then you're going to go on to win the championship.
Absolutely.
I think that's a very bold statement. And I think that looking at the tournament, who's in the tournament, it's stacked from match to match. You know what I mean? Like every single person in that tournament could be a very valid champion and someone who could be an amazing ambassador for that company.
There is not a single person in this tournament that I'd be surprised to find across from me in the final. It's just kind of that unfortunate thing that I'm also in the tournament and I'm going to win. So someone will, fight their way through their bracket and get the way to the final, and they'll have a lovely consolation prize of almost getting there. But it's my championship. It's very beautiful, and I want it. So I'm just going to really.
It's an amazing championship, and look, we wish you the best of luck in the tournament, and wish everyone the best of luck for in the Deathmatch Down Under upcoming shows. 2 shows back to back, one on the 21st, one on the 22nd, and these cards are just looking absolutely amazing. So, guys, head out there, make sure you get your tickets. If you live interstate or internationally, make sure that you keep up to date with Deathmatch Down Under on Independent Wrestling TV. They've had amazing shows. Go back and watch their past catalog and the shows that they've done, and you won't be disappointed, and you'll be hooked from the start. I promise you guys that. But Edward, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. You've been an amazing guest. I'd absolutely love to get you back on. As I said, I feel like we could have gone on for a couple more hours easily. And the time's flown by. So anytime you'd like to come back on, man, the invitation's there.
I mean, I'll have to forgive you for not thinking I was in the tournament first, but we'll discuss that later.
I was looking at it, so I must have. All right, no worries. I won't make excuses. I apologize. I fucked up. Everyone in the crowd, I fucked up. But Edward, thank you so much for coming on, man, and everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you keep up to date with all of our shows. We've got another couple of interviews coming up from Deathmatch Down Under. I'm going to be sitting down tomorrow night with Richie Taylor. Then on Friday night, I'm sitting down with Aaron Dick from Deathmatch Down Under. So make sure you tune into those interviews. But also, guys, on Thursday at 7 p.m. USA Eastern, which is Friday at 9 a.m., make sure to tune in for Get Funked. That is hosted by Alan Kwee Funk, former WCW star, former TNA star. And this week he's going to be joined by Goldilocks. They're going to be going into a lot of past stories of their time in TNA together. They're close friends, so it's going to be an absolutely amazing show. So make sure you tune in for that one. But guys, until next time, it's been a pleasure. Peace.